Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and we are back with some more cursey glory in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen to examine the intriguing topic of special grade cursed spirits. In this video, at least to me, feels essential because identifying a special grade cursed spirit is not quite as easy as it is to identify a special grade sorcerer. With sorcerers, it's almost unbelievably simplistic. There's 4 of them, they're assigned that rank by the overarching Jujutsu admin guys, and each of these sorcerers is roughly on par with each other in terms of their ridiculous abilities. Special grade cursed spirits, on the other hand, are almost painfully common in Jujutsu Kaisen. In fact, I'm certain that we've seen more special grade spirits than of any other type, at least in somewhat prominent roles. So our mission today is going to untangle this somewhat messy grading system and explore the vast world of special grade spirits. And it's all going to begin with a quick round of Sukuna or Sukuna, a very simple minigame, the rules of which are as follows. Here we have 3 Sukuna fingers. One is a real finger that belonged to the King of Curses, whilst the other 2 are fraudulent, fabricated fakes. Now, for reasons we won't go into, you will need to consume one of these fingers to contain Sukuna, so it's going to be your job to guess which is the real finger. Now, should you guess incorrectly, then not only will you fail your very first Jujutsu mission, not a good look, but you will also forge a binding vow by subscribing to the New World Review, which will result in consistent injections of cursey culture administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you are correct, then you will of course have the privilege of becoming Sukuna's new vessel. So which finger will it be? Make your choice now and we shall reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1, and bam, it was finger C. So if you guessed incorrectly, then you know the thing to do, and please do say hi in the comments below if you are new to our association. Welcome. Sukuna is a very good place to start though, because Jujutsu Kaisen began as a far more simplistic series. Within the prequel chapters, it was established there are 16 registered special grade cursed spirits in the entire world, which is a beautiful number that we will not at all stick to, but let's go through who fits this definition. Firstly, obviously, Ryomen Sukuna, the King of Curses. Now, I don't think it's ever explicitly stated that Sukuna is one of these 16, but you have to make the assumption that he is. He is quite possibly the most notorious of cursed spirits who has been known to Jujutsu society for over 1,000 years at this point, and is considered by many to be the greatest threat to human existence as we know it. So I think it's fair, with that in mind, to assume that Sukuna was a registered special grade. And to this day, he remains almost certainly the most powerful special grade cursed spirit we've encountered, although he does have some pretty decent competition, such as Sukuna's unintentional counterpart, the Queen of Curses, who would also fit this registered definition, potentially. Rika was logged and assumedly registered by the Jujutsu admin whatevers the very moment they took note of Yuta. And I say this because Suguru Geto would be the man responsible for claiming that there are 16 registered cursed spirits, designated as the special grades. And by the point he would have said this, he obviously knew of Rika, so logically she would be one of them, yes? And also the only one we know of who could really serve as a rival to Sukuna, as Rika, all on her lonesome, managed to defeat Geto's Big Bang Uzumaki thing, consisting of well over 4,000 other cursed spirits. Although in theory, Rika, as we knew her, no longer exists as her curse was actually broken, and she was seemingly allowed to pass on into the afterlife. With that said, Yuta does still appear to wield a cursed spirit named Rika to this very day, and if this is not Rika, then that spirit's rank is currently unknown. But if it is, then she's still very, very special. However, during the prequel, we were treated to an officially registered special grade, being the Tamamo no Mai Incarnate. This is a bizarre little existence because this has a sub-classification of being an imaginary vengeful spirit, meaning that it didn't manifest directly from an individual, but rather from the pure fear of a collective mass of people. Although sadly we know very little about it because Geto just summoned the Tamamo and then seemingly didn't do anything with it, not even combine it with the Uzumaki, and then bam, somehow off-screen Geto was defeated, and we have not seen this special grade cursed spirit since. Also within at least Pseudo Geto's arsenal is another assumedly registered special grade cursed spirit known as the Smallpox deity. And this guy has a fun subclassification as well, being a diseased cursed spirit, which spawned from the collective negative feelings that humanity has towards disease, which is quite understandable really. Personally, I'm not a big fan of disease myself, but Smallpox deity is also notable for possessing its own domain expansion. It's not the first special grade to do so because Sukuna obviously has his own phenomenal domain expansion, nor will Smallpox deity be the last domain wielding special grade. It's just notable because it's a cursed spirit that operates almost on a basic AI system. I suppose just like disease, it doesn't really think or act for itself, it just does. And in the case of Smallpox deity, it gets released and target whoever has the most cursed energy within its general vicinity. So it does not discriminate except in the way in which it discriminates. So that's 4 out of 16 registered special grades, but we do know of potentially more. And this next one is a bit tricky because we've not actually seen any of them, but there is a concept within within the Jujutsu Kaisen world known as the Big Three Vengeful Spirits. And like most of our specific information, this comes from the prequel series, where the ancestor of both Yuta Okkotsu and Satoru Gojo, Michizane Sugawara, was said to be one of Japan's Big Three Vengeful Spirits. They are apparently exceptionally well known, as the reaction of Maki, Panda, and Inumaki upon hearing this was to label Yuta as a quote, big shot sorcerer. So it's another one of those cases where it's fairly safe to assume that these three spirits are also registered special grades, if they still exist, I guess. But if they were ranked at anything less, then they would be unlikely to be such a big deal for whatever reasons that they are. Now with that said, other than Michizane Sugawara, the other three, by which I meant to say two, the other two of the Big Three Vengeful Spirits have not been named, at least not in Jujutsu Kaisen. So it is possible that we've already met them. By which I mean Ryomen Sukuna, for example. He's known as the King of Curses, but he is also classified as a vengeful spirit. So he could very well be one of the other two, although because Michizane Sugawara is intrinsically connected to the Gojo clan, it's also quite reasonable to propose that the other two of the Big Three have links to the other two primary Jujutsu clans, being the Kamo and Zenin families. So I suppose we could identify Noritoshi Kamo as a maybe potential candidate, also known as Kenjaku, a Brain-kun, not Geto, pseudo-Geto, the Geto who is not the actual Geto, the guy we don't like. With him, it's more of a semantic argument though, because due to the nature of his existence, it seems more likely that he's still technically a sorcerer rather than a cursed spirit, and perhaps someone who serves as more of a sorcerer parallel to Sukuna, the most evil sorcerer and the most evil cursed spirit. With all of that said, there is a much more obvious answer though, because the concept of three vengeful spirits does exist within the real world of Japanese mythology, which is a fake world, but a fake world different from Jujutsu Kaisen's fake world. In any case, Michizane Sugawara has been identified as one of them. The other two are Masakado Taira and Emperor Sutoku, all of which have very compelling stories that we may examine at another time. However, the overall point of this video is to identify them as potential special grade cursed spirits, but that all very much depends on how Akutami wants to proceed with what they set up in the prequel series. So that does it for potential registered special grade cursed spirits, and at most we seem to know of 7 out of the 16. However, that leads us into the wonderful world of unregistered special grade spirits, because within Jujutsu Kaisen, new curses and cursed dude creatures are being born every day, and some of them happen to be very, very special. Our obvious first candidate being Mahito. Come to think of it, he's probably by far the youngest special grade cursed spirit in the series, even more so than Rika, which is displayed quite prominently in Mahito's gleeful, childlike nature and a lust for macabre knowledge about the world. This can also be seen in his relative inexperience, because while his power did snowball quite radically, he would appear to be one of the weakest special grade cursed spirits that we know of. In terms of his birth, according to Mahito himself, he seems to be an embodiment of hatred that humanity possesses, specifically for one another, which is likely why he takes such pleasure from being immensely cruel to humans and has the powerful desire to eradicate them from the world. And he certainly isn't the only one either, because we also have 3 unregistered special grades with Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon. The 3 of them are quite fascinating because whilst they represent the best interests of the environment, they were of course born from human emotion, just like everything else. Specifically, these guys are the manifestation of human fear of natural disasters, which does go on to inform why they wish to rid the world of humanity, because that's what humans see natural disasters as doing. They're particularly special and wildly powerful though, and in fact all 3 of them seem to possess not only a domain expansion, but a mastery of said expansion, although sadly we never got to see Hanami's domain. Not every special grade is a big world-ending threat though, and this is where we start to get a bit more technical, because the Finger Bearers would also be classified as special grade cursed spirits. This brand of creature is born from a cursed womb coming into contact with one of Sukuna's fingies, which they themselves are known as special grade cursed objects. But the wombs then intake a portion of Sukuna's power, which then turns them into a special grade cursed spirit all on their own. Although it must be mentioned that this is where the classification system gets kind of muddled, because as Sukuna himself notes, they are nowhere near on par with any of the special grades we've examined so far. It's more that the ranking system is rather flawed, because the grades lower than special have become all but meaningless, because almost every threat we encounter is a special grade, and there's a wide variety of those. And that does of course also include our good friends the Death Paintings. With Choso, Eso, and Keichizu, we have another batch of 3 unregistered special grades, and potentially even 6 others that we have yet to see, because Noritoshi Kamo was a very naughty boy and did allegedly craft 9 of these existences that we know of. And once again, these special grades don't scale particularly well against many of the others we've examined. I mean, to compare the Death Paintings to existences such as Sukuna, Rika, or even Mahito, they result in quite a lacking feeling, really. I mean, special grade spirits almost need an entirely new sub-classification system within itself, I think, because right now, as I said, the term is, well, it's more or less meaningless, because because you can be a special grade cursed spirit and be capable of being defeated by first-year Jujutsu students. Or you can be a special grade cursed spirit and possess the powers of what is essentially an almost literal god. There's no real distinction between the two, but also this is an interesting narrative hole that Akutami kind of dug for themselves, because we were fighting special grade cursed spirits pretty much right from the get-go. The very second arc of the series featured our students fighting a finger bearer, so we started our journey at the very top of the cursed spirit hierarchy, which is problematic because for a story to be a story, we need to continue escalating from there, and in terms of classifications, there was nowhere else to go. That's not quite it though, because there are a couple of cases of maybe special grade cursed spirits which we aren't quite sure of. A good example of which would be the Kuchisake Onna, yet another imaginary vengeful cursed spirit at the disposal of Suguru Geto, which seems pretty damn powerful. Because while she doesn't have a literal domain expansion, the Kuchisake Onna is actually capable of trapping people within her innate domain. And I feel like that concept needs a word. If our general use of domains is called a domain expansion, then maybe this could be a domain inversion or something. I don't know. With that said, this spirit's grade was never designated. Given its sheer power, you'd have to assume that it's at least a semi-grade 1, but probably more because the other semi-grade ones have been pretty meh in comparison to the Kuchisake Onna. So maybe it's a special grade, and maybe it's not. I don't know. But in essence, when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen, it's usually safe to assume that if a cursed spirit is acting as any kind of major or maybe even minor plotline in most stories, it's almost certainly going to be a special grade. And while the hierarchy of Jujutsu sorcerer grades are fairly meticulously laid out and defined, we get a bit more meh when it comes to cursed spirits. In fact, to this day, we haven't even encountered any grade 1 or special grade 1 cursed spirits, if they do exist at all. We just seem to go straight from a handful of semi-grade ones and then immediately into the special grade, which is where about 90% of our relevant spirits lay. But to find out some even more relevant content, here is another video, a video for you, because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.